Networks have been trying to cash in with spin-off cartoons for decades. Most of the time they are god-awful, see my top 10 worst spin-offs video, but every now and then a spin-off cartoon turns out to actually be a decent show. I'm your host as always, K-Mac Time, and today we're taking a look at my picks for the top 10 cartoon spin-off series of all time. Starting on our list is a spin-off of Jackie Chan's famous martial arts movies called Jackie Chan Adventures, and this show was surprisingly well done. It ran for 5 seasons on the WB from 2000 till 2005, and also appeared on Cartoon Network. It had a well-written plotline about a girl named Jade gathering up all the stolen talisman to help her uncle, of course, and Jackie Chan. The show frequently made reference to Jackie Chan's actual movies and was full of amazing fight scenes that blended martial arts and magic. The show also had its fair share of comic relief as Jackie and crew always found a way to mess things up. But the coolest part of the show is how they actually got Jackie Chan to voice his character in the show, something you don't see all that often in cartoon spin-offs. My next pick is The Brak Show, which is a spin-off of the Adult Swim show Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Both shows are actually technically a spin-off of Hanna-Barbera cartoons called Space Ghost. The show actually uses stock footage from these classic cartoons reworked into a new storyline. Anyway, the show ran for just 3 seasons and 28 episodes from 2001 until 2003, and it actually returned in 2007 for a web series on AdultSwim.com that ended the series. I loved the characters from Space Ghost, and Brak was always one of my favorites. The show was such a unique and out there, kind of out of left field. It was really nothing like it at the time, and really set it apart from everything else. It's a show that most people have forgotten about, but I'd highly recommend you give this one a watch if you guys have not seen it before and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Why not?
Because it's stupid.
I thought it's fun.
Let's go!
One of my all-time favorite Disney movies is The Lion King. I've probably seen it a few hundred times throughout my lifetime, and that's why I was pretty excited when I heard they were making a new cartoon in the Lion King universe called The Lion Guard. The show focuses on Simba's son, Kian, who leads the Lion Guard, who is in charge of protecting the Pride Lands and preserving the Circle of Life. As of now, the show has 2 seasons and a 3rd one in the works, and it's been received very well by both critics and audiences alike. While the show is a bit childish for my taste, kids seem to love it, and it's always cool to see kids enjoying the same thing you enjoyed as a child. It's a solid show, one of my only watchable programs on Disney Junior in my opinion.
I don't know who you are, but this is not how we do things in the Pride Lands.
Yeah, around here we respect the circle.
Another show I loved growing up was Billy and Mandy, and it too got a spin-off show called Evil Con Carne, which followed Hector Con Carne, who was actually killed in an explosion, but his brain and stomach were saved and transplanted into Bosco the Purple Russian Bear. Which is such a crazy, odd premise, but for a show like this, it somehow works out great. The dynamic between Bosco is not always fully doing what the brain tells him, or deciding to listen to his stomach when he wants to see something to eat instead of listening to the brain. It was just a really cool dynamic, and something I've never seen before in any other cartoon. It was a really funny thing. It was a great little show that ran for 14 episodes over 2 short seasons. It was short-lived, but it was really good with what we did get to see. I always love Maxwell Adams' work, and this show really stuck out to me, and I wish it had made more than just 14 episodes. But if you guys haven't seen the show before, then they just recently added it to Cartoon Network On Demand, so make sure to go ahead and check this one out.
Bad news, but the League of Nations has sent a team of crack commandos.
Next up is Pinky and the Brain, which originated as a skit during the Animaniacs show, but was so popular that they decided to give it their own show, and man, is this show great. The show is incredibly well written and funny, and also features some of my all-time favorite voice acting. The Brain is voiced by Maurice LaMarche, and Pinky is voiced by Rob Paulsen, both of which do an absolutely amazing job of bringing these characters to life. These are genetically modified mice hell-bent on taking over the world. However, Pinky usually gets in the way of Brain's major plans, which makes for some hilarious antics along the way. Oddly enough, there is yet another spin-off of this show called Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain, though it's not as good and it was quickly pulled off the air.
Gee, Brain, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Everyone seems to agree that Teen Titans Go is somewhat a letdown of a show. Love it or hate it, Teen Titans Go is not anything like the greatness that the original was. However, Young Justice, on the other hand, is a great example of how to do a superhero series spin-off. It follows the teenage proteges of the Justice League and has a great feel and flow to the show. The characters are both relatable and likable on top of being badass superheroes. I also freaking love that they decided to go with calling Dick Grayson Nightwing instead of Robin in season 2. Little things like that are what make this show so memorable, and it sucks that it only got 2 seasons. But good news is on the way, as it is announced last year that a 3rd season of this is actually in the works called Young Justice Outsiders, so can't wait for that.
Because it's Gamma and you're not expecting trouble? Or because we're stretched thin and you have no choice?
Just don't die, okay?
One of my favorite movies growing up was Men in Black. Who doesn't love Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones gunning down aliens? I mean, seriously, great series of movies. But when I heard they were making an animated series for the show, of course I was stoked. And while Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones sadly aren't a part of the voice cast, the show still does a great job and is one of the best cartoons ever on the WB. The show ran for 53 episodes over 4 seasons between 1997 and 2001 before being canceled. The show is set in an alternate timeline in Men in Black than the film series where Agent K never retired and Jay is still an inexperienced agent. The humor in the show really comes through and the characters are incredibly likable. Not to mention the super cool action fight scenes that were very well done for the time. The show is a perfect example of how to translate a movie into a cartoon series without upsetting the fans of the franchise. Highly recommend giving this series a watch. Easily my favorite Batman show and DC Universe spin-off of all time has to be Batman Beyond, which had a total of 52 episodes over 3 seasons and ran from 1999 until 2001, and also had one direct-to-DVD movie special. This was the first time we ever saw a teenage Batman on TV, and it was incredible. It was set in a futuristic Gotham, and an elderly Bruce Wayne was training a new Batman to take over his fight against crime. Such a cool, crazy, awesome premise for that. The show featured a much darker theme than most superhero shows of the time, which led to many emotional moments and characters that felt more real than in other shows. Oddly enough, there's actually a spin-off of this show that also aired on the WB called The Zeta Project, which was met with a much less praise, but still an okay show worth checking out. However, the show did also inspire comic book storylines that got amazing stories. So if you're a fan of this character and this part of the generation, you may also want to read up on the comics because they are also very good.
Our hunch paid off. Ink was after the prototype battle pod.
That figures. Any terrorist organization would be.
Avatar: The Last Airbender was one of the best animated series ever made in my opinion. So when I heard that Nickelodeon was doing a sequel show called The Legend of Korra, of course I was very excited, but also praying that they wouldn't mess up and ruin the legacy of one of my favorite shows. But Nickelodeon did do an outstanding job with the series and it came out better than I even expected. It is set in the same world as Avatar: The Last Airbender just 70 years after the events of that series, and it follows the events of a 17-year-old girl named Korra, who is the new Avatar who is from a southern water tribe. The show ran for 52 episodes over 4 seasons from 2012 until 2014. The seasons are split up into books called The Air, Spirits, Challenge, and, of course, Balance being the last season. Again, I fell in love with the characters of this universe and really enjoyed the story throughout the show. No spoilers here, but the ending is also pretty badass, and I thought they did an excellent job wrapping up the series. I highly recommend this show if you're anyone who wants into great storytelling and great emotional moments between characters. Just make sure you guys watch the first series, Avatar, first. It really does help this, but either show are worth a watch. Now, before we get to my number 1 favorite spin-off show of all time, let's take a second to look at a few honorable mentions that just missed making our list.
Scooby-Doo, 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 Scooby-Doo.
There's a mystery in town, so call the coolest pop around.
Escutas.
Oh man, that's just gonna. Oh man, he's backing up! And fly, he's backing up! Come on!
No, we'll double his pleasure.
Take 2, motherfucker!
And now, my all-time favorite spin-off show has to be Star Wars The Clone Wars, not to be confused with Star Wars Clone Wars, which was actually made by Genndy Tartakovsky, the creator of Samurai Jack, but that's a different show separate to this. It came up previous. It's also pretty good, but this one I feel like is better. Anyway, I mean, what could possibly be better than a Star Wars animated series? And even though the newer Star Wars show, Rebels animated series, is also very good, Clone Wars, like I said, is probably my favorite of all the animated Star Wars stuff. The show ran for 121 episodes over 6 seasons, including one season that was exclusively released on Netflix back in 2014. The series is actually launched with an animated feature film that was actually showed in theaters, which is just the first few episodes put together in a theatrical release, and that was back in 2008. That's actually pretty cool they did that. The show is set during the 3 years between the prequel films Attack on the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and it is a full tie-in to the movies, and it's actually considered canon by the new Disney era of Star Wars, so that's pretty cool. I'm hugely into the Star Wars lore, and the Clone Wars gives us so much amazing backstory and detail into these characters, into these plot lines, and when you apply that when you're rewatching the movies, it's really kind of cool. Everything kind of comes full circle and then fits. It's such a really cool experience, so that's why I love watching these shows and then rewatching the movies. You pick up on things you may not have noticed before. Not to mention, the show features a freaking awesome battle scenes. In almost every season, there's all kinds of crazy battles and some kick-ass lightsaber fights as well. I mean, you seriously can't go wrong with this show, and I highly recommend that any Star Wars fan checks out this show. They should all still be up on Netflix as last I checked. So there you guys have it, my top 10 favorite cartoon spin-off shows of all time. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Did I miss a show? Is a show you would put on the list? Let me know what spin-off shows you guys enjoy down in the comments. Also, if you guys enjoyed today's video, then be sure to drop a like. It really helps out the channel. Also, be sure to check out some of my previous Star Wars video and subscribe for more of them, as we are just a few weeks away from episode 8. But until next time, guys, remember that it's always K-Mac time somewhere. Until then, take it easy and peace out.
Right in.
Ninja.